Hey, welcome to this step-by-step tutorial on integrating Monday.com and Docusign. So one of the biggest disadvantages of Docusign is its integration with Monday.com. Currently there is an app in the marketplace, but the problem is that it won't allow you to get data from columns and put that into the contract or whatever document you're sending. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So as a result, what we'll have is we'll have a contract like this one, where you would see the first name, last name, for example, both parties. And we're also going to involve the amount, and I'm going to show you with some examples how you can easily add more columns yourself and link them to whatever document you're trying to create. So let's get started. So what I did to prepare for this video is I created a very simple board with a group that's called draft, a group that's called send, and one that's called signed. So you can just create them yourself by clicking here and adding new groups. Then as you'll see here, what I did is I added a few columns: a status column, an email column, first name, which is just a text column, last name, which is also a text column, amount, which is a numbers column, and contract, which is a files column. All columns can be added with this plus icon. You just click text and you type it in. Or for example, if you want to have a file column, you would add a file. I'm going to go over this quite quickly because this is a relatively advanced tutorial. So I assume that you already know some basics of Monday.com. So one more thing I did to prepare for this video is I added the status column with a few options. We have sent, automation error, see updates, and signed, and the gray one is draft. So let's get started. First things first, when you've also created a similar board like I have, we're going to need a tool called make.com. And make.com looks something like this. It's a tool where you can integrate all types of apps with Monday.com, but also with other tools. It's super powerful and used by almost all Monday.com consultants that I know, and I would highly recommend figuring out how to use it, and I'll also show you how to do it today. With regards to pricing, it's pretty cheap. If you send, I don't know, a few hundred or less than 100 documents a month, you would already be able to, handle it with their core plan, which is about $10 a month. So nothing too crazy. So I set it up. Also, good to know, we're going to cover a few points in this video. One is how to send a personalized template via Monday.com. The second thing is how we're going to update Monday.com based on the behavior of the document. So is the document sent? Is the document signed? We also want that information in Monday.com. We're going to attach a file of the sent document in Monday in the file column, and I'll show you how to do it as well. And we're going to use some basic error handling because it happens sometimes that either Docusign or Monday.com is down for a few minutes or seconds, and then we need to handle those errors accordingly. So first things first, the first thing you need to do with regards to this integration is you would need to connect Monday and Make. So I'll go into Make, which looks something like this. And then you would go into scenarios on the left hand side. I created a folder called tutorials, so I'll just go in there, but your account might be empty. And then on the top right hand side, you click on create a new scenario. Now, this is the scenario C. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a thing called a webhook. So if you type webhook, there you go. We have a few options: a custom webhook, a webhook response, and a custom mail hook. We're going to use a webhook. Basically, what a webhook does is it sends a signal from Monday.com in this case to Make, which would just, for example, say when a status column changes to send, it will send a signal to Make.com, so Make.com can handle the rest. Cool. Well, let's get started. So we just added the webhook. You would need to click here on add, and you would give it a name such as send document Docusign. The name doesn't really matter, to be honest, so do whatever you want to do and then click on save. As you can see, there's now a URL here and we're going to use it. So we're going to copy the address to the clipboard and we're going to click OK. And if I would paste it here, you would see it here. So hook.eu2.make.com. If you're in the US, the URL might look a little different, but it doesn't really matter. So next up, we're going to add another step. So we would double click here, or you would click on this plus icon, and then you would need to go into webhooks again. So you can click here or just type it again and go for a webhook response. So you click there. And what we need to do when you set up a new webhook with Monday.com, Monday requires you to send back a challenge, which is kind of like a authentication type of thing to make sure that you're actually, the person that owns the webhook, that you can verify, okay, this is my webhook, which we do by a thing called a challenge, which is just a random string of numbers. So let's do that here. Now you can do a few things. I would just recommend typing exactly what I'm going to type, which is easiest. So if you click here on the body and you would do these two brackets, so the curly brackets, and you would do one.challenge and then you would close them. It looks something like this. And what this does is it will get the challenge data from the first step, which we don't have yet, and then it will send it back to Monday.com. So it's curly brackets, 1, 2, and then one.challenge, and then close the curly brackets. That's it. So then you click OK, and now we're going to run this automation. As you can see, it will just keep running until it has received its first signal. So at this point, we go back to Monday.com. And now it's very important for us to send the signal to Make if we want to send the contract. So to do that, we are going to add a few things. We're going to add another status, which is, let's call it ready to send, which I'll just drag and put here. And then what we do is when it's ready to send, we'll send it. We'll send the signal to Make, and then we can go to the next step. So let's do that. And what I usually do is I also create a button. And then I would, for example, call this send document. Because what I don't want, or ideally don't want, is that people start messing around with this status column. Like, these should always be updated by the automations we're going to create and not manually by people, and only by admins ideally, to prevent that it gets broken. So what I usually do is I click here on the 3 dots and I also restrict column editing to make sure that people cannot edit the value, because it should only be changed by the automation. So let's put it here. Now what we need to do is when people click on send document, it should actually do something, which would be changing the status. You might think, well, Patrick, why don't you send the webhook signal when you click on that button? Well, unfortunately, that's not possible yet. So if you go to the automation hub, you'll see it's not possible to, if you go to webhooks, there's no when a button is clicked, then send a webhook. That's not a thing yet, unfortunately. However, it is possible to say when a column changes to something, send a webhook, such as this one. So let's use this one as an example. Here, you would need to put in a webhook URL, which we got from the first step. I'll just get it again, so I'll copy it, and then I'll turn it on again. And now if I paste it here and click connect, it will say fail to communicate with the URL. So we can check why. As you can see, we got a signal. Here it is. There you go. We got a challenge, which is this random string. And then something went wrong here. Sorry, I made a small mistake. It's not just a challenge. what you would need to send back is something like this. So it's challenge like this. Basically, this is just some JSON that says the challenge is this challenge. So let's try it again. Connect. Cool. So it looks something like this when it works. And as you can see here, it now has two, yeah, it just worked. If you cannot get it to work, make sure that you actually set the challenge like this. So it's curly bracket, and then it's challenge with these, I think it's called apostrophe, but I'm not completely sure what the English term is. And then you have the double point, and then you do it again, but then you use the challenge. If you couldn't figure out how to, link to the challenge value, you can just also drag it like this. Some people prefer that. I usually do that, and I'll do that in the rest of the video as well. But for the challenge, I've just done it so many times that I know how to do it. So now what we can do now is we can delete this module because we don't need it anymore. And we can change this. So we can say when the status changes to ready to send the webhook. There you go. The webhook is ready. Now we can also make a simple automation that says when this button is clicked, set this to send a webhook or send a document. So how we're doing that? Well, we're going to add an automation, and we say when a button is clicked, it's this button, then change the status to ready to send. Very straightforward. So what happens now is when I turn it on, and what I can do is while it's loading, I can start running this one as well. So we can test if we actually get some information from Monday.com into this module. Let's see if it's done. There you go. So now what happens when I click this thing, it should change the status to ready to send. There you go. And then I have received a message. As you can see, we got an event with all types of information from this, Monday board. So now we connected the two. Basically, we have created a trigger that if you click on this button, it will change this to ready to send, and then it will send it to make. However, it's good to know that if you click it again now, it won't work because it's already set to ready to send. That's why we use these other labels, and I'll show you that later. One of the most important ones is the automation error. But as I said, I'll show you later in this video. So next step, we now get the information into make. So now we need to retrieve all the column values. So you would just double click here to add a new module, type Monday, click show more, and then type item. And then there's one that's called get an item. So what's good to know is that you would need to add a connection. Mine's already connected to my personal account, but not to my demo account yet. So I'll do that now. So you click add, and I, for example, say Patrick's demo account. And then the API key is something you can find by going to Monday, going into this thing, and then click on developers. And here you'll find something called an access token. There you go. As you can see, please keep this to yourself. I will destroy my access token after this account. Otherwise, you would be able to do everything in my demo account, which is not ideal. But I'll show you right now. This is what it looks like. And then you can just copy it. If you accidentally showed or sent or whatever this access token, you can always regenerate it, and you can use the new one. But just keep in mind that when you regenerate it, all the other ones won't work. So yeah, everything will break that you set up. Another very important tip is that you create this access token from a user that will always be in this Monday.com environment. Because if I, for example, in this case, would leave this workspace because I'm fired or I don't know, I'm going to work somewhere else, then this access token will become invalid as well. and all the automations will break. So make sure it's either, the founder, or ideally you have like an extra user in Monday that's just like an admin account, which is just for automations. Anyway, let's copy this one, go back to make, paste it here as the API key and save it, and it should work. There you go. Then we have the next step, the item ID, which is the pulse ID. So you can just click here, or if you want, you can drag it in here. Basically what we're saying is from the signal we received, we are going to look at the pulse ID, and we're going to get, with pulse ID is the item ID. Fun fact, it's called pulse ID because Monday in the past was called the pulse. So therefore it's still called a pulse ID. So yeah, you can get the data from all the columns by doing this. Do we want to show the parent item? Well, it is a parent item, but let's keep it yes. Do we want to show the sub items? I'll set it to no. If you build automations where you do need sub items, feel free to put it to yes. But if you put it to no, well, as it also said here, it will increase performance of this module, which will make things a little faster. So it's good to know. If you don't use it, just put it to no. Yeah, that's it. You could actually put this one to no as well, but I'll just put it to yes. And then the board ID, in this case, I only have one board, which is the Docusign tutorial. Same here. If you select the board ID, it will be faster. If you do not use a board ID, it can still find the item. So yeah, there's no problem at all as well. It might just be a little slower. So now what we can do is we can run it again. And if we go to this thing, I'll just put it to draft again and click here. And what you'll see is within a few seconds, it will receive, there you go. It will receive the signal and find the ID. So if you open it up, you see actually the test item. The name is test item. This is the board. This is the group it's in. These are the column values it has. So we can, for example, see it has no email yet. It has no information in the text, in the first name, last name, etc. So let's just do that now. So as an email, I'll use patrickcooldemo@gmail.com. And the first name, I'll just do Patrick with a typo, of course. And last name is cool. And amount, let's say $5,000. So now, if I would do it again, make sure you would run it again, otherwise you won't receive anything. It's important to run it. So if you would send it now, nothing would happen because it's turned off. So let's do it again. And then we should be able to see the column values that I just set. There you go. So this is my email. This is my first name. This is my last name. And this is the amount. All seems to be very well. So what's the next step? Well, the thing with Docusign, unlike something like PandaDoc, where you can actually create a template within PandaDoc with a very interactive template builder, Docusign doesn't really have something like that. So with Docusign, you would actually need to create a document up front and then use that document when you're going to send it. So I'll show you real quick what it looks like. So if I go to Docusign, I'll show there's two options: send a document to sign, which would, you would need to upload your own, or from a template. So if you have your own template within Docusign, feel free to use this one. And then you can, do the basic stuff. If you want to have a more advanced template such as we're going to create now, you would need the other step. So I'll just delete this one real quick. And then we're going to send a document to sign. And we're going to create a connection. So what we're doing now is we're authenticating our Docusign account. So we say Docusign demo account. And we click save. It will pop up something like this. Ask you to authorize it, to allow access actually. And then you would click. Maybe you would need to log in, but I was already logged in. So there you go. Now you have a few options. You have account. So in my case, I only have one account, Patrick. Will it be a draft or not? If not, it will send it automatically. If so, it will stay in draft and you can check it and send it after. Who are the people that need to sign it? So you can, for example, put your own information here and the information of your client, the subject, which is what they'll see in the email, and the message, which they'll also see in the email, and a document. As you can see here, we need to add some information. So we're going to prepare for those steps I'm dragging them here, I'm unlinking it here, and what we're going to do, as I showed you at the beginning of the video, I have this example contract in Google Docs, so you can just create it in your own Google Docs account or Google Drive account and have Google Docs. And here, there's a few things that we need to do. So with Google Docs, you can add variables to a template, which you would do not like here, which is just a ChatGPT generated contract. You would actually do it with those curly brackets again, or as well. You could, for example, say curly brackets first underscore name, and then last underscore name, and then it will actually work. So let's also say the price of this service is, and then we would do amount like this. So that's how you would actually input variables in Google Docs. So as a next step, I'm going to show you how that works. I'll put this one here. And then we can add a new module, which would be Google Docs. We're going to create a document from a template in this case. And what we'll do is I'll just find the document ID real quick, which I'll do a mapping because the document ID is just this thing. So from the slash till the slash. You can also do it by drop down, but then you would see all the folders in my Google Drive, which is probably not a smart idea. So I'll do it like this. So yeah, that's how you would do it. Then with regards to values, there's actually two ways. I'm just thinking now, wait, let me pause the video real quick. So I'll show you what it looks like when you do a mapping, or sorry, a drop down rather than a mapping. There you go. It would actually look something like this. So as you can see, for example, here we have amount with the curly brackets, and therefore it shows here as well. Same for first name and last name. So this is way easier to set up. I would actually recommend doing it this way. Cool. So as the next step, we're going to route the information. So in this case, we're going to set the amount, which is in this case amount. We're going to set the first name, which is the first name. And we're going to set the last name, which is the last name. And then we're going to give it a title, such as contract, and then we do first name, comma, space, last name, for example. You can do whatever you want, obviously. And then the new location, which is where we'll store the file. I'll just put mine to the video to pause real quick to check what it looks like for me. Yeah, so as you can see, for me it's automation agency tutorial videos, and then it would be contracts. And this is where I would actually save it. So yeah, we click OK. And then one more thing is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but let's double check. I think we need to, let's do documents, map. Yeah, so what we would actually need to do is we would need to create a document out of this Google Docs. So I'll unlink this one real quick and then add a next step, which would be a Google Docs step, and which would be, where is it? Download a document. So we want to download the document that we create here. So we actually have the document within Make. So let's map it to the document ID of the last step. So you see the bulb pinging, which means that this is actually the step that we're referring to. So let's use this one. and then download it as a PDF. And now, if you would do this, it would actually have the PDF in the memory of make.com. And now, if you go into the Docusign step, you'll see that it's possible to map it to the Google Docs tab. So we're going to send this document to the people that we want to send it to. So let's wrap it up real quick. So we do, as an example, we do Patrick. The signers are, well, let's say only the person needs to sign it that we're going to send it to. So in this case, it's our test person. So we have for email, we have the email. For the name, we have first name, space, last name, recipient ID. So we don't really have a recipient ID at this point. You could do like a contact ID if you use a CRM. In my case, I'll just use the item ID because it's unique. So it's easy to trace. Do you want to add an access code? Nope. Any notes? No, not really. So there are some interesting things here. So you can do a text tab. So you can just add like a text thingy in your contract. A date signed thing or date signed tab, which will show up as on top of an anchor string. So what you could do, for example, is type something like a test. And then if you would type test here, test, it would replace the word test with the anchor string. So that's actually pretty cool. You could do something like that. I'm not going into too much detail here, but it's possible. So yeah, you can do that. And then the next step is the sign here tabs, which is quite important. This is where the person will actually be able to sign. Unfortunately, if you use the method like we're doing now, you need to select your own X and Y axes, which can be super annoying, especially if you change contracts often, and if you, just to set it in general, because it's not really intuitive to find the X and Y axes of a signature position. But for example, let's just use 50-50. So you can see where in the document it shows up, and then we would need to tweak it a bit to get it into the right place. With regards to the document ID, I would usually do the item ID as well. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I've used a tool called Auto ID, which is this one. Auto ID Monday.com. I think it's, this one. It's like a $44 one-time payment, and it automatically generates a new number based on the specific logic. So you could, for example, do, let's say your document ID should be 0001, 0002, and then it would just automatically increment based on that, which is very useful and unfortunately not possible natively in Monday. There are ways to do it, but I've found that this was just the easiest way. So yeah, but I'll do item ID for now, which usually works fine. Then we have a subject, so we say, hi, please sign this. Let's see if it was sent to draft actually. No, great. Any message, this is a test message, so you can see what it looks like. So we map it to this one, and the document ID should be identical to the one that we set here. So yeah, that's it. With regards to file extension, or we're uploading a PDF, so you can just do PDF, and that's it. And now, let's see why it's showing this red thing. We can just save the module on the bottom left hand side, and we're going to test the first one. So I'll just run it, and I'm going to set it to the draft and click send document. And then you will see what happens here. So gets the data from Monday, creates a document from the template, then downloads the document, and then sends it to Docusign, as you can see here. And as you can see, it's sent correctly, so that all looks very well. I'll just look at my email real quick to see what it looks like. So this is just a Dutch thingy. Okay, cool. So it says, hi, please sign this, as we just said. which looks all pretty good. And if you review the document, you'll actually see, if you continue, that the price of the service is 5,000 as we set it, and the first name and last name here is set as well. But as you can see here, the signature place is a little incorrect, so you could just tweak around and play with it until you have it right. Unfortunately, that's not as intuitive with Docusign as it is with other tools like PandaDoc, but it works, so that's great. You can also see the contract we created here. Contract, Patrick, there you go, this is it. So what you could, for example, do to polish it a bit would be like, well, it's always dollar score amount, that kind of stuff. You can just change it by whatever you want to change it. So that's all possible. With regards to the next step, so what's important now is, okay, we have, send it correctly. So we would actually add another step, which would be update column values of a specific item. I'll show you what we're going to do. Board ID in this case, Docusign tutorial. And the item ID, we're going to map it to the pulse ID we had from the start here. And then we can choose the column we want to change, which would be, where is it? Status column. And we do it by label. So what we want to do here, we actually want to set it to send, because now it's sent. So we can just, give the feedback back to the user. It's very important when you're making automations that it's super intuitive for the person that's actually making it, or sorry, that's filling it in. So you could even make it more intuitive by, for example, doing adding another step here. So let's do that. We could do something like sending, and then you could add that here. So you can just copy this, you can clone this module, and I'll do it like this. So unlink it. It's just a little easier for the people to use. So for example, here we would do status would be sending, and then it looks more like a natural flow. So I'll show you what I mean. So now if I click here, oh, oops, it's not turned on. So we need to turn it on. Is it working? Yes. So see, it's first setting it to sending, and only when it's sent, it will set it to send, as you can see here. And that's the beauty of this, that you give feedback to your user very quickly. Because if it's set to ready to send for a long time, they don't know how long it will take, if something broke, if there are any errors that you didn't expect there to be. So yeah, lots of stuff that you need to do to make sure it's intuitive. So this is actually what you would need to do to send it. Pretty straightforward in my opinion. Let's change the name, so it's send document Docusign, and then we would actually create another one after we turn this one on. So now anytime someone would click it, it would automatically work. We don't need to manually turn it on and off again. And now we would do the last thing, which would be we create a new scenario. It's Docusign updates to Monday.com. So here the trigger would actually be from Docusign. So we would watch the events of an envelope. We would create a webhook, and here also just give it a name. I'll do a test demo webhook, but feel free to call it company name webhook, and save it. And then you will see here as well. So yeah, here we do okay. And what I'm going to do real quick is double check something in my list. Yes, just wanted to double check if I'm not missing a step, but we're good to go. So as you see here, we have the watch events webhook, and then we would actually go into the next step, which would be, well, let's first just run this one, because we need to get the first sample data to make sure that we can actually, work with this. So I'll go back to my email, or to the document you needed to send actually, or sign, sorry. So let's just sign it as an example and finish it. And then if you look into this one, within a few seconds it should show us that was actually, you know, that something has happened in Docusign. Sometimes it takes a little longer than other times. So yeah, just be prepared that it might be a few seconds. I'm just checking my email. So as you can see here as well, we actually got the contract signed and received it in the email correctly. So that's all working nicely. So that's good. For some reason though, I don't see any stuff coming in. So I'm going to check real quick what's happening. It might be because no, this looks actually good. I'm going to double check why and then I'll come back to you. I found it. So there's actually two triggers from Docusign. You have watch events, but in this case it's actually better to use the watch envelope completed one because, well, we only care about whether or not it's completed. So you would use that one. By the way, you can just delete the one that you already had with delete module and then do it again, Docusign, which would be envelope completed. We would select the account. The from date would just be now. Is there an option for now? Well, I don't know, it's a required field, so we need to do something. Yeah, I'll just do now. And then click OK and run it. And as you can see, we have a document that has been signed and sent, or at least it looks like it has. Sender is me. Let's see, start document, sent date, completed date. So it's actually showing all these things, which is good. Oh yeah, it's actually the one that we just sent. That's awesome. So what we do now is actually go into Monday because there should be something. Where is it? Email blurb, envelope ID, which is a good one. There's one thing actually I forgot to do. It's very important to save the envelope ID because we're going to use it later on. So that's a good thing to add here as well. So we would actually add another text column. It would be envelope ID, which would also be a restricted column because this is information we get from Docusign and not from a user. So what we would do now as a next step is go back into Make. I'll just save this one real quick. And then go back into the first automation we built. And here we actually have the envelope ID from this step. So we can just add it as another value that we update. So we have envelope ID and we'd actually map it to the envelope ID we got from here. So now if we save it, next time we would actually run this, it would set an envelope ID in this column. So let's go back into the other one that we just created. And now what we can do is we can go into Monday and get an get an item, but we would get it by column value and not by ID because we don't know the ID at this point. Sorry, I had to sneeze, so put it on pause for a second. So we get the column ID, which we would do by board. So we would actually use the board that we do everything in. And then we would say, oh, sorry, I'm actually using the wrong one. It should not be this one. Oh, oops. It should be something get an item by column ID. Where is it? Oh, yeah, search items in board by column value. That's actually the one. So we'd say the limit is 1 because there will only be one. Then we have Patrick's demo account. And in that demo account, we have the Docusign tutorial, which is my board, by the way. Then the column ID is envelope ID and the column value will be envelope ID we get from here. So it would actually check if the envelope ID we get here, if it exists in any of the items on this board. And the output would just be I'll just do this, and I think that should be fine. Don't think we need any output here except for the item ID. So yeah, this now works. What we would then do, so we would just continue working on it and then test the whole thing. What we then do as a next step is we would actually get the document from Docusign. So we would download the document based on the envelope ID probably, or document ID. So we'd say, okay, the account is Patrick, envelope ID is the one we got here. Where is it? Envelope ID. And document ID is actually, as you can remember, we set it to the item ID in the last automation. Do we need a certificate? Well, feel free to say yes or no. I don't really mind. I just, show everything. I'll do maybe watermark yes. You can choose different languages. I'll just keep it like this, but feel free to change it. And then click OK. Then we would actually want to upload this document into Monday. So we'd do Monday, and we would do file, add a file to a file column. And this would actually be the Docusign tutorial again. As you can see, it's already mapped to this previous step, so it's great. The item ID is the one that we got from here, and the column ID is the only one we got, which is contract, which is a file column. So this would actually upload the file, and then as a last step, we would still update the column to say it's sent. Or sorry, not sent, but signed. So we would go back again, map again to the ID. Just make sure that you don't map it like this, because then it's a fixed value. And anytime it goes through, it will use this item ID. Whereas if you map it, it will actually use the item ID dynamically. So it would use the one that we, depending on the information that comes through from Docusign, it would actually look into the board and use the right one. So one thing we would do is change the status column again, just like we did in the last step or last automation, and we changed it to signed. There's one thing, however, that's good to know. What we need to do is we need to make sure that actually the document can be found, or that it actually is found. I mean, it could be that you're now integrating this or implementing this automation, and there's already a lot of document signing going on. And when you do that, it can happen, or maybe when, for example, a different department in your company also uses Docusign, it can happen that, the Docusign trigger gets triggered and there's no Monday item attached. So what this step would do is it would say, well, we didn't find any Monday items. And then, downloading might work, but adding it to a file column won't work because we don't have an item ID. So then you will get a lot of errors. So how do we prevent that from happening? Well, we're going to add a filter, which you would do by clicking on this icon and then set up a filter. You would do check if item exists. And what we want to do is we do the condition, the total number of bundles equal to, which should be a numeric operator, or sorry, not equal to. I'll always do greater than or equal to 1. Meaning if it found something, it will continue. If not, it won't. And if there's a little more space, you actually see here, check if item exists, shows up. For some reason, we still have 2 red dots here. Value must not be empty. Don't think, we already tackled that one. So that seems all good. As you see here, this one runs every 15 minutes. You can also change it to every minute, but it's maybe a bit overkill. But you can do it. It will just cost more operations in the make.com account. But let's set it to 15 for now, which is fine. But feel free to change it by clicking on this clock and changing it to, for example, 1. Then we'll check every minute if there's a new document that's signed that we need to send into Monday. But 15 works for me. You can always manually trigger it as well. So if you, for example, do run once, you see, in this case, nothing showed up, so that's fine. So I'll just put it on, which means that it would now actually do it every 15 minutes and check. Cool. Well, let's test the whole flow, because that's always the most exciting thing. So let's go back into this one. Let's use some different information. Let's say we're John Doe to show you it actually works. And we have this amount. I'll keep the email the same. So we click here to send it. As you can see, it's ready to send. It's sending. And then within a few seconds, it will say send. Or it should. There you go. And the envelope ID now also showed up. So we did that correctly. I'll just pop up my email real quick. Wait a second. There you go. So we got an email. I'll just close these real quick. And we say, okay, please send this. This is a test message. So for example, if you want to make these, add variables to these or to this message, you can easily do it the same way as we did it with the amounts and with the other stuff. You can just map it. It's very easy to add more information to this automation. But let's test the whole flow. We didn't actually fix this one yet, but it's relatively easy to fix. You click, you finish. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it shows. Does it show still Patrick Cool? Yes. But we did say we changed it to John Doe. So let's check why that's going wrong. So you can look into the history actually of all the automations. So if we get the item, what's showing up here? Oh, it's actually showing John Doe. That's interesting. So maybe I'm actually curious why that's going on. Wait, let me check real quick. Okay, actually I have no clue why, because I just did it once again and now it does show John Doe. So I think it was just because there was a very small delay, but as you can see, it's now working. So I'll sign it, and then as you can see here, hey John, please sign it. Well, it's been signed, as you can see. Great. And then if we look into the Docusign updates, then we can run it manually. So as you can see, there was one where no item was actually found, which is probably one that I created before. So let's run it again. There you go. This one does exist. And there you go. It now shows the whole flow. So what I did is it showed it signed and the contract is now here attached as a PDF. There you go, contract agreement, services, John Doe. So this works well. I would actually increase this one to, for example, 10, so, or 5 or whatever. So if you have multiple, let's say multiple people sign a contract in the same 10 minutes, if that's your, time interval, then it will, it will be completed a bit faster. Otherwise, it would take 10 minutes for each round, for each new update, which takes longer. So if you just set it to 10, for example, and if nothing shows up, it will do nothing. But if there are 10 new updates, it will just run it 10 times. So actually, this is the biggest part. You would actually do some small things, such as when the status is changed to send. So let's do that real quick. When the status changes to send, then move item to the group, send, and we do the same for when status changes to signed. It would change, it would move it to the group of signed. So now this would automatically go through the stages as well, which is great. And you can also do like automatic notifications and that kind of stuff, whatever you want actually. So yeah, this is how you would actually do it, as I discussed here. So we did a personalized template. We did update the columns based on the behavior of a document. We attached a file, And now we need to prevent the errors with error handling modules. This is actually quite a simple step. So let's go into the automation again. So what you can do is you can do a right click. Oh, not a left click, right click. And then add an error handler. In this case, we're going to use the break module. And then it will say how many attempts and the interval between attempts. So to give some context, what the break module does is if there is an error on this specific step of the workflow, it will try 3 times every 15 minutes. So it will be, there's an error, it waits 15 minutes, it tries, it waits 15 minutes, it tries, and it waits 15 minutes, and it tries. If it then still is an error, it will be like, okay, it's actually an error. But if the Monday servers are down for like a few minutes, usually you would get the error, but by doing this, it would automatically solve itself, which is great. So I would actually recommend having break modules for each of them. So you can just do shift and then hold. So you can just do copy them, or you can do right click, copy modules, and then paste modules, whatever you want. I'll just do it like this with Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and then link them to the steps. So in this case, if the unlikely scenario happens that, for example, Google Docs is down, it will still work, but it will take a little longer. Same with Docusign, same with Monday. One thing, if you save now, it will show an error. So you would need to go into the settings and enable allow storing of incomplete executions. And then click OK. So it would actually store the data of the incomplete executions, and then it will continue. So let's do the same real quick with the other workflow that we created. Oops, that's this one. There you go. So I'll just do this real quick so it doesn't bore you. So you can just connect them like this. And then you would also do this setting, and I would save it. So now we have error handlers as well. Obviously you can make it way more complex, way more detailed. There are a lot of scenarios that you can still tackle to prevent most issues from happening. There's a lot of tips and tricks you can use to make this even more intuitive and user-friendly. But this is the main thing. One thing to make it, for example, more intuitive or user-friendly could be to hide the whole envelope ID column for most users. So you can just hide it like this and say this is the home and save it as a default view. And then people won't even see the envelope ID. So you're working on it, you're using it in the background, but you're not really showing it to people, which makes it easier for them to understand. Because less is more in this case. There's a lot of more stuff you can do, such as when someone clicks on send a document and forgets to set the first name, you can return an automation error and create an update. That could actually be a useful thing to add. Or if this will also result in an error, if you do, for example, Patrickle demo like this, and here with you say, for example, email, then the data that you get through the API looks a little different, which usually causes errors as well. So you would either, you can ask your team to just do this, but asking a team to do some things is not really robust, and it would be better to handle the error in Make. Anyways, lots of stuff you can still build, but this is the core stuff you need to know to integrate Monday.com with Docusign, and from here on you can continue building. Hopefully you liked it. If you have any questions, please let them know in the comments. I'll try to respond to each and every one of them. If you liked the video, please give a like, it would help me a lot. And if you're looking for any specific automations, just leave them in the comments as well. Or just leave your questions and let me know what you thought of this video. Good luck with the automations and have fun. Bye-bye.